Well, hello there, beautiful. It's Kylie Patchett here. Welcome to the Wild and Finally Pecking Free podcast. I deeply believe that the years during and beyond perimenopause are a rite of passage. All of a sudden, we find ourselves on the precipice of a life transition where our brain literally rewires and runs out of fucks to give. We find ourselves shifting identity, no longer caring what other people think, and being invited to expand into new ways of being. Here, we share the real and raw stories from women who've been through deep midlife metamorphosis, taken a leap of faith, or broken the ties that bind us in patterns of staying small, stuck, and like our needs just don't matter. This is the midlife medicine you didn't even know you needed. Stories full of joy, despair, freedom, courage, and deep self-honoring. I am so glad you found us. Welcome. Hello. Welcome to another edition of Wild and Finally Fucking Free. I am Kylie. This is another solo episode where usually I would ask you a high quality question. And my high quality question today is, are you being a bitch or are you just having beautiful boundaries? This came up for me in a conversation I had whilst recording the podcast just yesterday. And the person that I was interviewing was saying that she was known for being the biggest bitch in town. And when she described the behavior that she had, really what she was saying was, I take no shit. I'm clear on my boundaries. I know when people cross them. When people cross them, there's consequences. And in the episode, we spoke briefly about why does that automatically make you a bitch? And the concept of if standing up for my own needs and if being clear with my boundaries and being unafraid to communicate my boundaries and including consequences to my boundaries, which is if you cross them, I'm no longer available for this communication or this contact or whatever, makes you a bitch. Well, rock the heck on, right? So, bitch has so many negative connotations at the moment. And one of the things that I was just talking to my beautiful therapist who helps me work through, old conditioning. And she was saying, bitch and proud, Kylie, bitch and proud. And I was like, oh, now that's a different take on this, isn't it? So I wanted to share a little bit of a story that has happened in my life in the last week. And it's a really good demonstration of how emotions can speak to us and how we treat other people the way that we should be treated. And that boundaries are these beautiful, clear statements of what you are and are not available for. So a member of my extended family, shall we say, I don't want to make this too personal, sent a communication in writing, so in email, and very clearly on a number of fronts crossed my boundaries. And when I'm saying boundaries, the indicator for me in this instance was automatically I felt really, really upset, really, really upset. I felt that the tone of the communication was inappropriate and it was aggressive. And I guess one of the key points that I want to raise with you guys is your emotions are always speaking to you, right? And to me, anger is something that some people, particularly some females, are quite uncomfortable with emotion-wise. And I think that comes from, a society that polishes up, these are the positive emotions and that's what we should be heading for. And we'll spiritually bypass every single other thing that you actually feel as a normal human. So let's normalize having all of the emotions, and let's normalize the fact that when anger comes up, there is a good chance that it is because something has been crossed that you feel should not be crossed, or a boundary has been crossed that you feel it should not be. And I guess for me, in kindsight, as my beautiful friend Andrew Aspis would say, not hindsight, kindsight, to make sense of this interaction, really it's very clear to me that the other person was not communicating in a way that was in line with my values. So, we always make our values a priority. And when we meet people that don't have the same values, that is one of those things that makes it feel, out of sync or out of whack, or like, I don't know whether I really want to be around this person. And some of my values are respect and clear communication, and definitely loving kindness. But the thing that happened to me was that after this communication occurred, I didn't have what would be the normal bodily reaction to anger. I had something far, far, far more intense. And I was talking to my therapist about it today, and I was like, why? Why does this happen? Like, I've done so much work on my emotional regulation. I've done so much work on healing, sitting in uncomfortable emotion and not just glossing over it or shoving it down with food or pretending it's not there or staying busy over it. And it was almost like I had this feeling like I was angry, and then I had a whole story that started about why I shouldn't be angry, and it wasn't right to be angry, and that my response should have been more considered, etc. One of the things that I have just been reading is something about emotions staying in the body for only 90 seconds. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of this. Sorry, I'm just clicking to open it. Beg your pardon for that noise on the recording. So the 90-second rule. This article describes, they explain that if you allow an emotion to exist for 90 seconds without judging, it will disappear. And the person describes this feeling as the hook. So as our thoughts are the hook and the line and sinker. And someone that contributed to this line of research is brain researcher Jill Bolt Taylor in her book called A Brain Scientist's Personal Journey. I haven't actually read the whole book. I'm going to actually add it to cart in Booktopia. But she says this: once triggered, the chemical release by my brain surges through my body and I have a physiological experience. Within 90 seconds from the initial trigger, the chemical component of my anger has completely dissipated from my blood, and from my automatic response is over. If, however, and this is a key piece of clarity for me, and hopefully it will be for you, if, however, I remain angry after those 90 seconds have passed, then it is because I have chosen to let that circuit continue to run. Now, my anger response in my body, usually I would feel anger as a bit of a bit of adrenaline, a bit of sort of heightened, maybe heart rate. I actually found myself awake for most of the other night after receiving this communication, and I was deeply hurt and deeply angry. And what was happening to me physiologically was that I was not able to get back to sleep. My head was racing with ways of answering. My heart was racing. I felt very heightened. I felt very on edge and on high alert. And for someone who has done, so much learning about using body and breath and lots of mindset taming tools to, when emotions do come up, to help to soothe and to regulate and to normalize these, I felt really, really freaking uncomfortable. But when I was reading this 90-second rule, what came to my mind and my awareness was it is exactly what they're saying. So the physiological response started. And then I started down a whole heap of very, very well-worn paths in my brain. The chief two is, for me, like, I'm not seen and I'm not heard. You're actually not asking for my point of view or knowledge about this subject. You're just, judging that you know better. And to me, the old worn circuit is feeling unseen and unheard. And then the second one, which was the biggest one, and I think this is really what was at the heart, definitely the heart, I use that very consciously, of my reaction was, no matter what I do, I will still never be good enough. Now, I can look at those patterns as an adult in an unheightened, calm state and go, wow, just stories, not very helpful stories. not aligned to what I desire for my life, which is to feel wild and free, to feel calm, to feel grounded in my worth, and to feel like, I deserve to be heard and I deserve to be seen, as does every other human on the planet. So I was busy processing all of these new awarenesses of myself. I'm like, okay, so the anger is speaking really loud in my body. And what that means to me is, there's something here for me. There's something calling my attention here, because these stories are creating such a shitstorm of physiological response in my body that there's something that I need to look at. What I decided to do overnight was not to send any of my heightened response emails, and, to not stay in the heightened emotion and react from that end of things. And I'm like, hey, that is massive progress for me, because I have definitely seen a pattern for myself in previous life where I feel like in a lot of ways as a child, my needs weren't met. And so my equal and opposite thing to do especially in my teens and early 20s, was to be all the way in the other direction. So not to be assertive, to almost be aggressive with the way that I stood up for myself. And I was like, no, fuck you. And we've talked about this on the episode with Heather Paulson, where she was saying that her codependence started to exhibit a really fierce independence and like I've got this, I don't need you sort of thing. So it's the same sort of vibe, different mechanism, but same vibe. And as I've aged, that has definitely softened in me, and I'm much better now at sort of, sitting in that initial response and choosing not to react, to just, okay, wait. And I often use the technique of, I'm feeling really angry now. My heart is racing. My head is starting to hurt. I've got a tight neck. I feel sick in the stomach. I'm breathing really fast and I feel really, really on edge. And so I have found in the past that languaging what I'm feeling rather than getting sort of stuck in the physiological experience of it is it's almost like one step removed, I guess, of being an observer of what's happened. So anyway, fast forward, making this into a long story. It doesn't need to be. So I chose not to respond. In the meantime, the same person, there is a group email. Someone else kind of leapt in and said, look, I think you're a bit out of line. And then the original person who sent the email sent another one. And part of that email was paraphrasing, but I have a right to my opinion and you're fucking well going to hear it. And that was a little bit too much for my evolved self-awareness. And I, of course, in hindsight, could have actually taken another breath and could have waited to respond again, reacted. And I am not happy to tell you that the way that I reacted was immediately going to the little child in me who felt unseen and unheard and hurt and wanted to hurt the other person back. So I sent an email. Most of it was factual and some of it was factual, but in a way that it didn't need to be expressed. And it certainly would have been difficult to receive by the other person. I have later apologized for that. But the reason I'm sharing this is because, again, when we experience a strong emotion and our boundaries are crossed, it's really important to be able to introduce the pause between the trigger/stimulus and your response to it. And hopefully in that pause, we can become aware, like an eagle eye view, of when we are going down old, well-worn tracks of wounding and pain, and we are tempted to respond from protecting that inner child. Because really, there is no freedom in that, right? If we're still responding down well-worn tracks that have not worked for us before and have not created our amazing, beautiful, lit up, nourishing lives, obviously doing it again and again and again as an adult is pretty silly. So I share this example because it has made me as a result of all this backwards and forwards with email, one of the things I was talking to my therapist about was that I started to feel, when I first sent the email, I felt very clean with my boundary. And one of the things I said was, I'm not available to be spoken to in this way. I find it hurtful and distressing. Now, the piece that I probably missed, and the piece that I would be inviting you to try on for size, if boundaries is something that you find tricky like I do, and I'm talking to all those people pleasers and good girls out there, because boundaries are always going to be something that is something that doesn't come naturally to us if we've been conditioned that way. What I missed out was, I'm not available to be communicated like that. If you continue to do this, I will block you, or I will whatever the consequence is. I did miss that bit out. In hindsight, what I was starting to do was doubt my response. And I want to bring this up because if you have, similarly to me, been in a position younger in life where you have either been taught or shown or decided, and I use those words quite consciously because it's not always that someone expects us to look after them. Sometimes it's just us hearing something and the little unresourced person in us deciding that we have to look after people. So for whatever reason, if we have developed a pattern of taking care of other people's needs, when we set boundaries, if you're anything like me, and I can only speak from my experience, but if you're anything like me and you're healing good girl / caretaking personality traits, it is going to feel very uncomfortable to set a boundary, and it is going to be something that you question yourself about afterwards. And this is why I want you to be aware of, are you really being a bitch, or are you having beautiful boundaries? My self-doubt showed up very strongly a couple of days after this, argy-bargy went past, because I was like, wow, did I do harm? Did I make my needs more important than someone else's? When it comes down to it, boundaries is exactly that. Because what you are saying is, even if you need to abuse me, even if you need to blame me, even if you need to deflect shame onto me, even if you need to make me the baddie in your story, I still get to choose what boundaries I have around me, and I still get to choose how I will and won't be treated. Hey gorgeous, we interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, my sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you'll get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliepatchett.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode. And acknowledging that I still feel uncomfortable having set the boundary. I also want to share something that might be helpful to understand, maybe if you have got this tendency to put other people's needs first. When I first started learning traditional Chinese medicine, I've done a fair bit of study in Oriental psychology, 5-element theory, traditional Chinese medicine, and Zen Tai Shiatsu. So all centered around the 5 elements and the TCM meridians, and traditional Chinese medicine is TCM. One of the things that I learned from one of my very first mentors was, when we are forming, and I mean on a physical, spiritual, emotional, like the whole kit and caboodle of our soul, right? Mind, body, everything. The elements that form, one of them is the earth element. And the earth element is about understanding what is and isn't us. And it's also about the first source of nourishment that you receive. So it's very much around how we were attached to our mothers in particular, how we receive love, how we learnt how we needed to be to receive love. When it's out of whack in someone, that's someone who could be stuck in self-pity, or maybe a little bit lacking in motivation, feeling ungrounded, uncentered, uncomfortable, achy, heavy. And when someone is in a good balance with the earth element, this is the welcomer. It's the space holder, the calm earth mother, if you sort of think about those two ends of things. And I just wanted to read you something in one of the textbooks that I learned from. It says, the earth element is connected to the archetypal figure of the mother, our first source of nourishment. The love of the mother instills in us the ability to take care for or mother ourselves, and ultimately care for others. If we perceived as children that our mother or mother figure was unloving, uncaring, unable, or unwilling to feed and nurture us, we may go through life seeking to fill the void, searching for the absent mother. Our internal refrain becomes one of feed me, nourish me, understand me. Essentially, this is a cry for sympathy, the emotion associated with the earth element, and is a key diagnostic indicator of a primary imbalance in earth. An earth imbalanced person may require sympathy from others excessively, or may tend to smother others with emotion, over-mothering, endeavouring to fix everyone, ignoring her own needs, and becoming an exhausted martyr. In some cases, this person may be so distrustful of the motives of others that he or she may reject sympathy entirely. Whew. I know that when I reread that, I knew the earth element was a very powerful awakening, the learning around the earth when I did this. This is more than a decade ago when my kids were little. What it's actually reminded me of was the first mentor that initially initiated me into this learning and this wisdom, ancient wisdom, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, was the awareness that if you had any issues or perceptions of issues receiving nourishment as a kid on all levels, from your mother particularly, but also from other caregivers, then sometimes it's very difficult to know what is ours and isn't ours. And if you think about the definition of a boundary, that's exactly what it is. Yes, I will receive this. No, I will not receive that. Yes, I am available for this. No, I will not be available for that. And the other thing that's very real to me, even when I read that back, is a tendency to make other people's emotional needs more important than yours. and the over-mothering and endeavoring to fix everybody else. So if I come back to my very strong anger reaction, it really honestly was because someone said, I'm not doing enough to take care of someone that I love. And the fact that it was delivered in a disrespectful way. So I guess this is just a source of reflection for you around if there is any sense of discomfort or charge in any of your relationships, which you're becoming aware is as a result of a boundary that you may need to have more solidly in place. And it's really important to understand that the boundary must have consequences. So there's no point saying you can't do that and then allowing it to happen again and again. As we know, just like when we're parenting children, people very, very quickly learn when we are serious and when we are not serious. And the next level is listening to the response of your body and having that awareness around the 90 seconds that if you just allow yourself to sit in an emotion for 90 seconds, the physiological response dissipates. Now, you and I can do anything for 90 seconds. Well, maybe I couldn't hold 300 kilos above my head, but, you know, within reason, we can do most things within 90 seconds, for 90 seconds. So if you do find yourself stuck in emotional states, like I was with anger the other night, or maybe stuck in sadness or stuck in even heightened joy, like, you know, all emotions to excess may indicate imbalance, then having a look at the stories that's driving the emotional response. So like me, you know, no matter what I do, I'm not good enough, and not seen and not heard. So two of my biggies keep coming up, the nasty things. And when we do feel that response, giving a pause and allowing ourselves to respond rather than react. But also when your anger or your emotional response is telling you that someone's crossed a boundary, to sit in the feeling of responding, first of all, but responding from a place of teaching that person what you will and won't accept. And I'm here to tell you that if that's being a bitch, if being clear with what I will and won't accept and being aligned to my values and honoring myself and my needs and not making other people's needs or communication styles be more important than me, if that makes me a bitch, I am a bitch and proud. And yeah, an invitation just to feel into, maybe there's something there for you and maybe not. Maybe you've got really nice, clear, crisp boundaries and people know what you are and are not available for. And if that's you, more power to you. And if not, if there's something here for you, just feel into it. Just feel into what you would like to stop accepting, what you would like to communicate clearly. And yeah, maybe it is time to step up and create some beautiful boundaries. I'd love to know. Hit me up on Instagram and tell me what boundary you're being called to put in place, or actually, even better, what boundary you've put in place and had some beautiful reaction to. Because, yeah, the initial reaction around people that are used to treating us a particular way will be discombobulation and sometimes, trying harder to break the boundary, sometimes complete disbelief, and sometimes trying to make you feel bad. And that's just the way it is. But again and again, I am taught that the cleaner and clearer I am with what I will and won't accept and what I am and am not available for, the more aligned my life becomes to how I want to feel and what I want to create. So here's to creating freedom and joy and calm. Here's to honoring our emotions as signposts to our what's the right way to say that? Signposts to things that need our attention or may need our attention. And here's to pausing enough to respond rather than react, and not having the equal and opposite, oh my goodness, what have I done? I'm a goose moment, because that's not great either. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for listening. I'm so excited. Yesterday, I celebrated a month of this beautiful podcast baby, and 840 times some of you beautiful people out there in interweb land have downloaded one of the stories and listened to them. So I thank you once again for being here and really beautifully receiving all the stories that are shared. And yeah, may we meet again very, very soon. Hello, beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm just here to celebrate the fact that we have just clicked over 1,000 downloads of this beautiful podcast baby of mine. So funny to think, because it's 55 days or 56 days today since I actually had the idea and thought, yeah, I'm going to create that, and I'm going to share stories, and hopefully women will really resonate with all the messages. And you have resonated. You have taken the time to pop in reviews and messages and DMs to me just to say how inspirational all of these guest stories have been. And I'm so grateful that you're tuning in. And I'm just wondering if, like me, as we draw to the close of 2022, you're starting to realize that you are quite freaking tired. There's been a lot going on, right, on a global scale in our communities, breaking down of big structures in our society and conditioned belief systems or shared belief systems. And for a lot of people that I know, me included, a lot of stuff going on in personal lives, a lot of taxing, stretching stuff. And the thing is that I hear all the time that we've been taught that we need to keep pushing through. You know, we need to be pushed through to get anywhere. We need to push through the tiredness or the exhaustion. But I'm here to actually offer a different point of view. What if the reverse is actually true? What if the very thing we actually need most to settle our nervous systems, to help our bodies feel safe and our minds to be calm, is actually to rest more? Rather revolutionary, isn't it? I've decided, as a gift from me to you for the end of 2022, and as we cross over the threshold into a brand new year, to gift you a beautiful experience called Revolutionary Rest. Revolutionary Rest is a deeply relaxing and restorative yoga nidra experience. It combines body and breath to come into stillness and just to be. And it provides a beautiful respite from all the stress and the busyness and the obligation you might be feeling through the silly season. And I just really, really want you to be able to be gentle with yourselves. Be gentle. Remember that you are a precious, precious, miraculous being, and you need to be taken care of as well. So you will find Revolutionary Rest completely free on the podcast website at kyliepatchett.com.au. I really, really hope you enjoy it. I've just listened back to it myself, and as much as it is a little bit weird to do a meditation to your own voice, it is really beautifully relaxing. And it actually is including a few of the tips that I learned in my last week's training and next weekend coming. I've just been joining a beautiful lady in Ireland called Neve Daly, and she has a form of yoga called Instinct Yoga. And the qualification that I'm doing is all about yoga to support the stages of menopause, including perimenopause and menopause and beyond. And one of the big things that we've talked about is that a key for supporting ourselves in our physical, emotional, mental, spiritual health, everything, is to come to stillness and rest so much more than what we do. So I hope you'll take me up on my offer as a gift from me to you. Merry Christmas if you celebrate, and Happy New Year if you're listening to this in January. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Thanks, guys. Bye.